I got off of social media. So I don't have an Instagram, no Twitter, no Facebook anymore. And I gotta tell you, it feels amazing. It really does. It's like, it feels like a weight is lifted off of me. And subsequently, I've gotten more creative. I've felt like the hunger to actually pursue art and filmmaking and video making. A creative joy kind of has reemerged within myself, so that's been really awesome. It feels really nice not to be sucked into that social media hole all the time. And I watched The Social Dilemma. You guys have maybe seen that documentary, and if you haven't, you should definitely just go check it out because it's fantastic. I didn't really fully understand it until I watched that documentary, Social Dilemma. It's so good, and you guys should seriously go check it out. Basically, the gist of that whole documentary is that humans are basically not designed to have social media. Like, our brains really aren't that much different from when they were when we emerged from the Australopithecus era and actually became Homo habilis and then Homo erectus and then Homo sapiens sapiens. They're really not that much different. Like, we're kind of designed to care what the tribe thinks, and generally speaking, through evolutionary practices and purposes. And I'm not a scientist, so don't quote me on any of this, but this is the way I understand it. We were really designed to care about what a small tribe thinks. You know, maybe even a medium to large tribe, but still, like, that really wasn't that many people in comparison to, like, what social media is now. Like, we have hundreds, if not thousands, some people tens of thousands of friends and people on their social, people they don't even know. We're just really not designed to, one, be able to handle what that many people think about us, but also to know what that many people are saying, thinking, and feeling all the time. So it's that combined with the constant barrage of information that we get from social media too, that I think is just really toxic and harmful to people. And I really started taking a look back on my life going, what was it? Like, what changed to where I don't feel any sort of creative joy anymore? I'm feeling depressed, and granted, like, there's other things in my life that have happened that have definitely made me feel depressed, so I'm not saying that it's just the social media, but I definitely think it's a large part of it, at least in my life. I really was like, what was it? And so I started thinking back to, like, when it really started all changing, 2012-ish, and I realized, wow, like, I had social media, a Facebook, for a very short time in 2009. I got it when Facebook basically first came out, although it did come out in like 2004, right? But when people really started, like, the mass adoption of it, I got it in 2009. But then I ended up deleting it, I think, like, after only a year of having it. And from there, I think like late 2009, early 2010, I just didn't have Facebook at all. And I went all the way to like 2013, and that's when I re-upped with Facebook. And then I realized that I had started putting so much of my time and effort and emotions into this, like, artificial virtual world. And I went, my God, whoa, okay, wow, that's what it is. It's social media, it's Facebook, it's Twitter, it's Instagram, it's all of these things that are sucking my emotions dry and making me sad and anxious and nervous and depressed. And then, you know, I read a few books, as aforementioned, and then I watched The Social Dilemma, and then I was like, wow, this is what it is. This is a large part of it. And so I was like, you know, I'm probably going to miss social media to a certain extent. And what is it that I really miss? Well, it's the pictures. The pictures and the videos are really what I would miss the most. And I didn't want all that information to just disappear or to be lost, because it's kind of cool to look back on your pictures sometimes, you know, like, wow, cool, that was me in 2011, that was me in 2013, this is what I was doing here and there. And it's a nice reminder, it's a nice reflection back on your life, right? So I went ahead and just actually, like, downloaded a copy of my data. So in case anybody else is thinking about quitting Facebook, like, you'll definitely want to save your pictures and your videos, because you'll miss those. That's really the only thing I think you'll miss about Facebook and Instagram is the pictures and the memories. So I downloaded a copy of Facebook. You can easily Google it and figure out how to do that. If you decide to leave Facebook and Instagram yourself, I just transferred that to Google Photos. And now I'm super happy that I did that. And actually, this is like the 3rd day in now of not having my Facebook or my Instagram. And I quit Twitter. I quit that bullshit a long time ago. Because Twitter is a fucking dumpster fire of negative emotions and gaslighting and a political fuckery. You know what I mean? Like, it just has no point. Unless you're a celebrity or somebody famous. Like, why would you have a Twitter? It's literally fucking cancer. With all that being said, I am feeling much more joyous and feeling much more lively in my emotions and just my general disposition. Feeling lighter, feeling happier, feeling less stressed. And the other part of it too, which is super interesting, especially for creative types out there. I'm speaking to you directly right now. There's a certain like hunger that reemerges after you're off social media. It's like you feel safe and you feel compelled to create, whether it's films or, you know, art or poetry, writing, whatever it is that's your creative medium, singing, whatever it is that your creative medium that you hold dear to yourself, like, you will feel hungrier and more creative after you're off social media, and you'll like want to create art for the world, and especially art that you care about. That's been like the biggest boon in my life right now, is feeling that creative hunger, that fire.
So, with all of that being said, I want to go ahead and do something just a bit different now as well. I want to watch this clip, this video of Joe Rogan and Tristan Harris, because I think it's really important for you guys to hear somebody who's a lot smarter than me talk about this subject, because it really clarifies a lot of the things that I said in the video, and he's way more eloquent when he's talking about this subject matter than I am. I'm super curious to see what you guys think about it as well, because I think it's shocking and revelatory information that should be being talked about like all of the time, but it's not. We have not had any successful generations navigate the social media era, the social media experiment, ever. So, like, a lot of you guys that are, like, young millennials, early iGen, and then the generation in between, I don't remember what that generation is called, you guys haven't seen any successful people navigate this arena. So you have no role models to look up to, people to look to go, wow, like, this person over there actually made it through, here's what they did X, Y, and Z, and now they're successful. Now they're not depressed. We don't have any of those examples. And so I guess basically what I'm trying to say is, he's saying that this is the largest psychological experiment that we've done on the human population, like, ever. Let's get into it.
The thing we have to hone in on is the asymmetry of power. As I say in the film, it's like we're bringing this ancient brain hardware, the prefrontal cortex, which is like what you use to do goal-directed action, self-control, willpower, holding back, marshmallow test, don't get the marshmallow now, wait later for the 2 marshmallows later. All of that is through our prefrontal cortex. And when you're sitting there,
deferring
gratification.
gratification.
Okay, I'm going to go watch, I'm going to look at this one thing on Facebook because my friend invited me to this event, or it's this one post I have to look at. And the next thing you know, you find yourself scrolling through the thing for like an hour.
Right.
And you say, man, that was on me. I should have had more self-control. But there, behind the screen, behind that glass slab, is like a supercomputer pointed at your brain that is predicting the perfect thing to show you next. And you can feel it. Like, this is really important. So, like, if I'm Facebook, and when you flick your finger, you think, when you're using Facebook, it's just going to show me the next thing that my friend said. But it's not doing that. When you flick your finger, it actually literally wakes up this sort of supercomputer avatar voodoo doll version of Joe.
I don't know why.
And the voodoo doll of Joe is, the more clicks you've ever made on Facebook is like adding the little hair to the voodoo doll. And the more likes you've ever made adds little clothing to the voodoo doll. And the more, watch time on videos you've ever had adds little, shoes to the voodoo doll. So the voodoo doll is getting more and more accurate the more things you click on. This is in the film, The Social Dilemma. Like, if you notice, like, the character, as he's using this thing, it builds a more and more accurate model that the 3 AIs behind the screen are kind of manipulating. And the idea is it can actually predict and prick the voodoo doll with this video or that post from your friends or this other thing, and it'll figure out the right thing to show you that it knows will keep you there. because it's already seen how that same video or that same post has kept 200 million other voodoo dolls there, because you just look like another voodoo doll. So here's an example. And this works the same on all the platforms. If you were a teen girl and you opened a dieting video on YouTube, 70% of YouTube's watch time comes from the recommendations on the right-hand side, right? So the things that are showing recommended videos next. And it will show you, what did it show that the girls who watched the teen dieting video? It showed anorexia videos, because those were better at keeping the teen girls' attention. Not because it said these are good for them, these are helpful for them. It just says that these tend to work at keeping their attention. So again,
these tend to work if you are already watching diet videos?
Yeah. So if you're a 13-year-old girl and you watch a diet video, YouTube wakes up its voodoo doll version of that girl and says, hey, I've got like 100 million other voodoo dolls of 13-year-old girls, right?
As a 13-year-old, why would you need to be dieting?
These other videos, I don't know what, I just know that they have this word thinspo.
Unless you're severely overweight or obese.
To be inspired for anorexia. Yeah, it's a real thing. YouTube addressed this problem a couple years ago, but when you let the machine run blind, all it's doing is picking stuff that's engaging.
Why did they choose to not let the machine run blind with one thing, like anorexia?
Well, so now we're getting into the Twitter censorship conversation and the moderation conversation. So this is why I don't focus on censorship and moderation, because the real issue is if you blur your eyes and zoom way out and say, how does the whole machine tend to operate? Like, no matter what I start with, what is it going to recommend next? So, if you started with, a World War II video, YouTube would recommend a bunch of Holocaust-denial videos, right? If you started teen girls with a dieting video, it would recommend these anorexia videos. In Facebook's case, if you joined... There's so many different examples here, because Facebook recommends groups to people based on what it thinks is most engaging for you. So if you were a new mom, you had Renee DiResta, my friend, on this podcast. We've done a bunch of work together, and she has this great example of, as a new mom, she joined one Facebook group for mothers who do it-yourself baby food, like organic baby food. And then Facebook has this sidebar. It says, here's some other groups you might recommend, you might want to join. And what do you think was the most engaging of those? Because Facebook, again, is picking on which group, if I got you to join it, would cause you to spend the most time here, right? So for some do-it-yourself baby food groups, which group do you think it selected?
Probably something about vaccines.
Exactly. So
Really?
anti-vaccines for moms, yeah. Okay, so then if you join that group, now it does the same, runs the process again. So now look at Facebook. So it says, hey, I've got these voodoo dolls. I've got like 100 million voodoo dolls, and they just joined this anti-vaccine moms group. And then what do they tend to engage with for a very long time if I get them to join these other groups? Which of those other groups would show up?
I don't know.
Chemtrails.
Oh, okay.
Pizzagate.
Flat Earth?
Flat Earth, absolutely. Yep. And YouTube recommended, so I'm interchangeably going from YouTube to Facebook because it's the same dynamic. They're competing for attention, and YouTube recommended Flat Earth conspiracy theories hundreds of millions of times. And so when you're a parent during COVID, and you sit your kids in front of YouTube because you're like, this is the digital pacifier, got to let them do their thing, I got to do work.
Right.
And then you come back to the dinner table and your kid says, the Holocaust didn't happen and the earth is flat. And people are wondering why. It's because of this. And now to your point about this sort of moderation thing, we can take the whack-a-mole stick after the public yells and Renee and I, make a bunch of noise or something, and a large community, by the way, of people making noise about this. And they'll say, okay, shoot, you're right. Flat Earth, we got to deal with that. And so they'll tweak the algorithm. And then people make a bunch of noise about the Thinspiration videos for anorexia for kids, and they'll deal with that problem. But then they start doing it based reactively. But again, if you zoom out, it's just still recommending stuff that's kind of from the crazy town section of
Is
YouTube.
the problem the recommendation? Because I don't mind that people have ridiculous ideas about Hollow Earth, because I think it's humorous. But I'm also a 53-year-old man.
Right.
Right. I'm not a 12-year-old boy with a limited education that is like, oh my God, the government's lying to us. There's lizard people that live under the earth.
Right.
But if that's the real argument about these conspiracy theories, is that they can influence young people or the easily impressionable or people that maybe don't have
That'd
a
be crazy,
sophisticated
though.
sense of
What if that was actually
vetting
real?
out bullshit.
I mean,
Right.
it's not.
Well,
but
and the algorithms aren't making
thought
a
experiment. What
distinction
if it
between
was?
who is just laughing at it
Right.
and
It'd be
who's
mind-blowing.
deeply vulnerable to it. And
Exactly.
generally, it just says who's vulnerable to it. Because another example, the way I think about this is if you're driving down the highway and and there's Facebook and Google trying to figure out like what should I give you based on what tends to keep your attention. If you look at a car crash and everybody driving on the highway, they look at the car crash. According to Facebook and Google, it's like the whole world wants car crashes. We just feed them car crashes after car crashes after car crashes. And what the algorithms do, as Guillaume Chasleau in the film says, who's the YouTube whistleblower for the YouTube recommendation system, is they find the perfect little rabbit hole for you that it knows will keep you there for 5 hours. And the conspiracy theory, like dark corners of YouTube, were the dark corners that tends to keep people there for 5 hours. And so you have to realize that we're now something like 10 years in to this vast psychology experiment where it's been in every language in hundreds of countries, right? And in hundreds of languages, it's been steering people towards the crazy town. And when I say crazy town, I think of, imagine there's a spectrum on YouTube. And there's on one side you have like the calm Walter Cronkite, Carl Sagan, slow, kind of boring, but like educational material or something. And on the other side of the spectrum, you have, the craziest stuff you can find. Crazy Town. No matter where you start, you could start in Walter Cronkite or you could start in Crazy Town. But if I'm YouTube and I want you to watch more, am I going to steer you towards the calm stuff or am I going to steer you more towards Crazy Town?
Crazy Town.
Always more towards Crazy Town. So then you imagine just tilting the floor of humanity just by like 3 degrees.
Probably towards Crazy Town.
And then you just step back and you let society run its course. As Jaron Lanier says in the film, if you just tilt society by 1 degree, 2 degrees, that's the whole world. That's what everyone is thinking and believing. And so if you look at the degree to which people are deep into rabbit hole conspiracy thinking right now, and again, I want to acknowledge COINTELPRO, Operation Mockingbird, there's a lot of real stuff, right? So I'm not categorically dismissing it, but we're asking, what is the basis upon which we're believing the things we are about the world?
There's a lot of real conspiracy
that's
theories.
based on technology.
And the shame of it all, though, is that they're making
what's
it seem
going on
like
in Portland. Well,
all
the only way I
conspiracy
know that is
theories
I'm
are
looking at my
nonsense,
social
which is not
media
true.
feed, and according to that, it looks like the entire city's on fire and it's a war zone. But I called a friend there the other day, and he said it's a beautiful day. There's actually no violence anywhere near where I am. It's just like these 2 blocks or something like that.
Right.
And this is the thing, is warping our view of reality. And I think that's what really, for me, The Social Dilemma was really trying to accomplish as a film.
There's just so many echo chambers.
Polanski was trying to accomplish is how did this society go crazy everywhere all at once? Seemingly, this didn't happen by accident. It happened by design of this business model.
When did the business model get implemented? Like, when did they start using these algorithms to recommend things? Because initially, YouTube was just a series of videos, and it didn't have that recommended section. When was that?
It's a good question. I mean, originally YouTube was just post a video and you can get people to, go to that URL and send it around. They needed to figure out, once the competition for attention got more intense, they needed to figure out how am I going to keep you there. And so recommending those videos on the right
that was a wild time on YouTube,
early, if I remember, actually.
That was a cool ass time.
That was sort of the innovation, is like keeping people within this YouTube wormhole. And once people were in the YouTube wormhole, constantly seeing videos, that was what they could offer the promise to a new video uploader. Hey, if you post it here, you're going to get way more views than if you post it on Vimeo, right? And that's the thing. If I open up TikTok right now on my phone,
do you have TikTok on your phone?
Well, I'm not supposed to, obviously, but more for research purposes.
Research. Do you know how to TikTok at all?
No.
Okay. My 12-year-old's obsessed.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. She can't even sit around. If she's standing still for 5 minutes, she just starts like... She starts TikToking.
And that's the thing. I mean,
2012.
That's my TikTok.
Oh, so the Mayans were right.
Right.
2012, the platform announced an update to the discovery system designed to identify the videos people actually want to watch by prioritizing videos that hold attention throughout, as well as increasing the amount of time a user spends on the platform overall. YouTube could assure advertisers that it was providing a valuable, high-quality experience for people.
Yeah.
So that's beginning of the end.
YouTube.
Yeah. So 2012 on YouTube's timeline, I mean, the Twitter
I'm just going to start calling it YouTube.
I think introduces the retweet and reshare buttons in the 2009 to 2010 kind of time period. So you end up with this world where the things that we're most paying attention to are based on algorithms choosing for us. And so the sort of deeper argument that's in the film that I'm not sure everyone picks up on is these technology systems have taken control of human choice. They've taken control of humanity because they're controlling the information that all of us are getting.
Right.
Think about every election. Like, I think of Facebook as kind of a voting machine, but it's a sort of indirect voting machine because it controls the information for 4 years that your entire society is getting. And then everyone votes based on that information. Now you could say, well, hold on, radio and television were there and were partisan before that, but actually radio and TV are often getting their news stories from Twitter, and Twitter is recommending things based on these algorithms. So when you control the information that an entire population is getting, you're controlling their choices. I mean, literally in military theory, if I want to screw up your military, I want to control the information that it's getting. I want to confuse the enemy. And that information funnel is the very thing that's been corrupted. And it's like the Flint water supply for our minds.
Episodes of the Joe Rogan Experience are now free on Spotify. That's right, they're free. From September 1st to December 1st, they're going to be available everywhere. But after December 1st, they will only be available on Spotify, but they will be free. That includes the video. The video will also be there. It's
a pretty sad scene right now. And the amount of division Spotify. And polarization and just the overall angst and anxiety that people are feeling. So I guess really all we can do is just try to strive to be better individuals and try to make our lives and the lives around us, the people that are in our lives, our friends, our family, our loved ones, try to make those lives better as much as we can as well. And just to evolve into better, more spiritually inclined people that are more compassionate and empathetic and loving and yada, yada, yada. You know what I mean? That's all we can really do. I really wasn't going to say this, but I kind of feel like now maybe I should. I feel like you guys should consider quitting social media. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't, but I'm definitely saying that you should consider it. Because like I said earlier, it feels good. It feels good not to be sucked into that zone anymore. And I think a lot of people will get a lot of benefits from quitting it. Although, I do understand the fact that one individual just quitting social media, especially if you're ensconced in an academic zone or any kind of environment where a lot of people around you are using social media, I get FOMO. I get that that's a thing, and that maybe that wouldn't have a significant effect on your life if you quit social media, but everybody else around you is still using it. I don't really know. I don't have an answer to that. All I can say is that I know that for me personally, it's seemingly helped my life tremendously over the last few days, 4 or 5 days now that I haven't had it. So I can really only speak from anecdotal experience, but I think it's important, and I think it means something. I think it's measurable. And with all the studies and all the information that's out there now, I don't think there's a whole lot of question on whether or not social media is dangerous. I think it's a matter of how dangerous and what kind of long-term lasting effects that this psychological experiment, because that's basically what it is going to have on the minds of the American populace, not only the American populace, but also the world at large. Like Tristan said, if you can tilt the world's perspective even 2 or 3 degrees, and that's in a direction that's maybe not that healthy, oh man, there's so many opportunities to capitalize on chaos. But anyways, until next time, my fellow Dawn Nation, be well, stay happy, stay peaceful, gather some inner peace, and go forth out into the world loving your fellow man. Bye-bye.